Hey friends. So, I've got a question for you. Who decided that a real writer writes every day? Like, who came up with that, and why do we keep saying this over and over and over again when it just doesn't actually work? Like, real talk here. That's not how life really works for most of us. In this episode, we're going to be talking about writing process. And it takes one of the most repeated pieces of writing advice, and let's investigate whether this is real or whether or not we just kind of came up with this and all kind of just agreed with it. Who does this actually help? And on the other side, who is it actually harming when we hear this piece of writing advice that is consistently given? In case you're new here, hi, and welcome to Authority, where we spill the tea on the publishing industry. I am E. Prabilski, an author, editor, and writer. I am a public speaker on the subject of publishing. I am a member of the Editorial Freelancers Association and currently sitting on the board. I am involved in a whole bunch of things. I've been in the industry since about 2008, so about 17 years, 18 years. And I am the author of How to Write the Damn Book and How to Publish the Damn Book. So it's nice to meet you if you are new here. If you're not, well, you know who I am. So this rule that we're talking about, it actually comes from Stephen King. It is frequently talked about how he writes about 2,000 words a day. It's in On Writing, I think. And that piece of advice has been since kind of canonized as this is what the definition of a real writer is. And I'm not here to cast shade on Stephen King. He is a phenomenal writer, and I have no beef with On Writing. In fact, I have a copy on the shelf behind me that I have read and is quite dog-eared. It is a good book. But it got canonized in a way that is doing harm to people who, for whatever reason, can't quite keep up with that. And they get this idea in their head that they're not a professional editor. Now, it is true that habit formation, I just finished reading Atomic Habits, so bear with me here, but that kind of consistency forms neural pathways in our brains that become like an information superhighway. So we develop these processes and it becomes a habit, and the habit becomes part of our identity and it becomes part of who we are. So having a writing habit is a good and important thing. And real life is not necessarily universal in that way. It's not always universal that everybody can write every single day. The 2,000 word thing wasn't designed to be a commandment from Stephen King to the rest of us. He wasn't Moses coming down the mountain with the tablets. He works that way himself. That's how he writes, or at least it's how he wrote when he wrote On Writing. There are people like Brandon Sanderson whose writing schedules are absolutely bananas. And again, I have no beef with Brandon Sanderson. I have nothing but incredible respect for him and what he's accomplished. And I'm also not Brandon Sanderson. That's kind of where we are in this division. We need to recognize that this habit is a tool. Having a daily writing habit is a tool. It means that we don't have to spend as much energy getting into the space if we write at this time, at this day, every day for this amount of time, or we write this number of words, whatever it is. That habit helps reduce the friction of getting started. It helps create a framework, and all of that is incredibly useful. It's genuinely helpful to have those kinds of goals, and I support them. But the problem we start seeing is when this stops being just a technique that people deploy for quality writing and to develop their writing skills, and when it starts being a verdict on whether or not you're an actual writer. I have seen this, if you're not writing, you're not a writer kind of idea in the writing spaces since I entered the scene. And it's a continual fight that we have to address because we always have this pressure of this is what we should be doing, and that if we're not doing this, it's some kind of indictment on our character, on our dedication to the craft, and all of that just isn't true. This advice is valuable. It's useful. Unfortunately, it also fails a significant number of people. For example, neurodivergent people like me. Hyperfocus doesn't operate on a schedule. I can't necessarily know when everything else in the world is going to shut up and I'm going to hammer out 10,000 words in a day and write an entire novel in a week. I have done this before because my brain just would not stop doing it. And there are also times when my executive function is like, nope, sorry, we aren't doing this today. We're not doing anything today. In fact, you are going to sit here and you're going to stare at your screen until you're about ready to pull out your hair. And it's already gray. Like, I don't need to lose it. Like, there are times when it just doesn't happen, or chronic pain. I get a migraine and just can't. It doesn't mean I'm less of a writer. There are plenty of times when 2,000 words a day, or whatever it is I've set for myself, doesn't happen. It's not been happening recently. In fact, I have not been working on my fiction pretty much at all. And that is because I have been very, very busy. I've had a lot of client work to do. My real life has been chaotic. I'm preparing for grad school. My fiction, as important as it is to me, has had to take a break because I've needed space for other things. That doesn't make me less of a real writer. This also, the idea that this consistency is the only way to being a real writer, it fails other people. It fails caregivers. There are people who take care of their children or aging parents or other people in their lives. Sometimes they're working multiple jobs in survival mode. They just don't have the bandwidth to write every day. And this idea that this is what makes you a real writer damages those people too. And they really deserve better. Like, they deserve to be seen as real writers, even when they're struggling. Sometimes especially when they're struggling, honestly, because sometimes having something to hold on to that isn't just the struggle is extremely important. The advice that is often said, just wake up a little earlier to hammer out words, is almost insulting, really, because it implies that the person has the ability to wake up an hour earlier and that they're not going to bed 3 hours late as it is because they're exhausted and taking care of other problems in their lives. It implies that their sleep should be the thing that takes the hit. People who are struggling in those ways are not writers failing at writing. They are people who are not writing in a way that looks like other people expect it to. And when those other people tell them, well, in order to be successful, you need to do these things, they internalize those things, and oftentimes they quit, or it destroys their self-worth, or alternatively, I've seen people for whom that daily word count becomes their entire identity to the exclusion of other things for their health and safety and well-being. They just kind of, it gets sacrificed on the altar of being a real writer. And that drives me crazy because I really want to make sure those people aren't hurting themselves in the pursuit of creativity, because that's the myth of the suffering writer. We covered that the last podcast episode, and that's really... I don't want people getting driven into that. Consistency is of value. Returning to your work reliably enough that you make progress and that you feel motivated and that you can remember what you were doing and you're connected to it, that is necessary. It is important. If I put down a book and try and return to it 8 months later, a year later, and pick up exactly where I left off, I'm going to struggle. My writing also might have changed. Things will be different than when I put it down. However, your consistency can look any way you want. It can be once a day. It can be 3 times a week. It can be every weekend. It can be... For a while there, I was writing my books exclusively for a couple months during the summer. I would just take those off and do nothing but my writing. That worked well for me. There are ways that you can structure this consistency and create space for your writing that isn't 2,000 words every single day. What you need might not be what somebody else needs. If you're writing 10,000 words every Saturday, for whatever reason, but if you're writing 10,000 words a day, every Saturday, means that you are able to do things the rest of the week that support your life. And writing 50 words a day during the rest of the week would put you in burnout because you just can't change gears like that. Okay, then write your 10,000 words every Saturday, though I kind of recommend against that because that sounds like a quick way to get carpal tunnel, but I ain't your mom. So, there are a lot of ways that you can create writing time and develop your writing practice. Like I mentioned, binge writing. Sometimes you just write a novel all at once. That's kind of what NaNoWriMo, before everything went sideways with it, used to be. It was kind of a binge write, a collective binge write. And some people, that's what works best for them. They need to just sink their teeth into one project and write until their fingers fall off, and that project comes hot off the keys in a week, in 3 weeks, in 6 weeks, whatever it happens to be for that person. And they don't write again for the rest of the month. And sometimes that's just what they do. Sometimes that's just what's right for them. Sometimes you'll have rhythms that develop. You'll have a season where you draft, a season where you revise. Sometimes you'll have a season where you are preparing for publishing. It might be like phases rather than specific days that you do things. You'll have a system that cycles. That works better for some people. There are also times when we are just so burnt out and tired that we just need to drop to the absolute minimum. So what does the minimum viable consistency for you look like? What could that look like? What could you do on a really bad day or a really bad time of your life that might look like consistency? And sometimes the answer is nothing. That's okay. The thing is that whole idea that we should feel guilty around any of this is wrong. Sometimes we're going to miss a day. Sometimes we're going to miss a month. Sometimes we're not going to be able to write for a while because we are dealing with things in our personal life that make it impossible for us to sit down and focus on the page. Like I said at the beginning, I'm currently preparing for grad school and trying to finish up client manuscripts, and there has been no breathing room for my personal writing, so I haven't really been doing it, which is miserable, but it's also factual. It's just how things are. Sometimes we just need to let go of the idea of should. What is should here? Should you be writing? I don't know. Maybe that time would be better off taking care of yourself. But none of those are defining? There we go. None of those are defining characteristics about whether or not you are a writer. You just might be a writer in a season where writing is not your priority because life has decided other things for you. The way back from that place, though, is the same. You open your project, or open a fresh project, and spend some time working on it. Sometimes the way back is writing a bunch of fan fiction. Sometimes the way back is acknowledging that this is not the season for you. Sometimes the way back is taking some time to look at what your priorities are. Where are your top tier priorities right now? Is writing one of them? Should writing be one of them? Sometimes our top tier priorities are like, I would love to be writing right now, but my kid is incredibly sick and I need to focus on that. Or I would love to be writing right now, but I need to feed my family and this job is the only answer I have, and at the end of the day, I'm just too tired. There are many real reasons why we take time. So whether you're writing 2,000 words a day or not, you're still a real writer if it is something you are working on. And working on can also look many different ways. Working on could be you're reading books on craft, or you're thinking about things in the car, or taking voice notes for yourself of plot ideas. Working on things can look so many different ways. There's no one true way. As I'm sure you've noticed that's the through line of like everything I talk about. There's no one true way. There's no one correct answer. There are many answers. There are many ways up the mountain, so to speak, to use other philosophies. If you are taking the time to think about this and you're listening to this episode because you want to be a real writer and because you want to write, then congratulations, you are one. Momentum isn't as fragile as a lot of productivity culture seems to imply it is. Momentum can be little pieces at a time that accrue. Momentum can be a slow roll that gathers steam. Momentum doesn't have to be all or nothing. Productivity culture, a lot of the time, misses the mark and fails to account for the humanity in situations. And we really need to focus on that humanity. We really need to zero in on that, because right now, humanity is kind of a complex question. With the rise of large language models, many people feel that humanity is maybe on its way out. I don't happen to think that, but there are people who do. And we're hearing a lot of that messaging. It's not impossible to spend time resting and taking care of yourself and be a real writer. This thought process that you have to write a certain number of words per day in order to be a real writer is nonsense. If that works for you and it's a process you like, and that this season of your life it is what you're doing and loving and really energizes you, then do it. I support this. Like I said, consistency is important and valuable. We want to encourage consistency. However, if it doesn't work, it's a mismatch in what's going on in your world. It's not necessarily a personal failing in you. It's not necessarily that you are doing something wrong. It might just be that life is not making space for it. The question here isn't whether or not you write every single day. If the definition of being a writer means you have to write every single day, most people aren't writers. The question kind of comes down to whether or not you come back to writing. However long it takes you to write, however long it takes you to put a project down and come back to it, but however long that is, do you keep coming back? Is this the well you keep returning to over and over again because you know it's where your spirit gets filled? Then you're a writer. It still counts. Thank you for joining me here on Authority, where we spill the tea on the publishing industry with heart, humor, and hard-earned insight. If you found today's episode helpful, I would love if you share it with a fellow writer. Leave a review, tag me in socials, whatever it is. I want to know what you think about all of this. Your voice matters, your story matters, and if you are still wearing pants at the end of this, then you are ahead of the curve. I am currently in pajamas. So you're probably ahead of me today. I'm very tired. The personal end of this story, in preparation for seminary, I've been having to prepare for travel at the end of July. And I had some exciting experiences trying to book a hotel in Iowa, which was stressful. Trying to figure out how I'm going to get from the airport to the college is stressful. That is a whole lot of everything. I have been very busy with church and work, which I am very glad for. Like, I have no complaints about having clients and having worked for clients that I'm doing. My clients are fantastic. I love my clients. And there are so many phenomenal people that I talk to and spend time with on a daily basis that I don't feel like I'm lacking something. I want to do more writing than I am currently, because right now I've been doing 0. And at the same time, I'm not sad about the life I'm currently living. I'm living a very good life, doing a lot of fascinating things, and I'm grateful for all of it. So, an example of a writer who's not currently writing, that's me. I mean, I write my Substack articles, which I guess that does count as writing. I do that regularly, but so this is as much a commentary on myself as it is anything else, I suppose. I will be back hopefully in a week or so with the next episode. I know it's been a while between them. I had some health difficulties the last few weeks that prevented me from doing much recording. I had horrendous migraines. And when I have a migraine, the idea of sitting in front of a camera with a light and all that other stuff just makes me want to crawl into a hole and die. So, instead of doing that, I have been doing other things and trying to rest. So, again, examples of a writer who's still a writer, a creator who's still a creator, even when I'm not creating every minute of the day. So, take care out there. I hopefully will see you soon. I wish you all the best. And if you have questions or thoughts, please contact me. I would love to talk to you more about this and see if I can't help you feel like you actually are somebody who matters and like your work isn't just being lost.